sideways. Literally sideways.
Yeah. This is cute.
I'm also like, I get so tempted to just be like,
I know, I don't know if they're the right.
Yeah, them ones
yeah,
like,
you're
reading
reading
from the book.
Slam! Poetry!
This one's about this relationship I'm seeing.
Or just like...
Yeah, like, you know them ones. Sometimes I'm like, should we be clicking? Hi. Okay, thank you.
Ryan, do you do Platform London stuff? Yeah. Nice to see you.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
out.
Good.
Bring my hoodie.
Good.
All the
Good.
layers.
Yeah. It'll be a good day.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Okay. Good to go.
No, seriously.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Morning, everyone. How are we doing? By means of woo. Woo! Yeah! It's a Wednesday. Let's get excited. All right, so we are going to be talking about creative collectives today. Obviously, the creative industry can feel, once you're inside of it, it can sometimes feel lonely or isolating to kind of navigate. So we're going to talk about the ways that we can thrive by networking sideways, by working with people around us, and just hearing from some successful creative collectives here who have made waves by building their communities through their disciplines. So that's media, photography, sport, radio, events, all of that. So I'm going to do a little brief intro and then I'll ask everyone to introduce themselves. Excuse me. So I'll start from the left. We've got Dora, who is part of Ultra Black Running. Best known for her bold and empowered attitude, Dora is a running coach that has been part of several Nike campaigns, global campaigns that is, promoting the movement for all, celebrating individuality and self-confidence. Her motto is trust the process and own it. Her passion to help and support young girls
Like, yes.
I'm like, am I getting like hype man gestures? Her passion to help and support young girls feel more empowered led her to becoming a mentor to young women wanting to get into sport as an athlete or as a professional and providing them with pathways into the industry. Next up on the lineup, we have Jameela, who is the founder and editor-in-chief of an independent magazine, platform, and creative agency called Azeema. Jameela is a multidisciplinary artist working across different mediums, photography, filmmaking, creative direction, and sound. Jameela's practices are often focused on identity, representation, and the visibility of women and non-binary folk of colour. Her work is often inspired by her dual heritage and explores themes of the in-between and the nature of different cultures and beliefs coming together. And then lastly, we have Caroline Wilson, who is a writer and curator who loves to collaborate and create. Since 2017, she co-founded a film platform, Undrlndn, without all the vowels, for when you Google it and follow it later, which hosts events, screen films, and supports emerging filmmakers. Aside from her work at Under and collaborations, she is also developing scripts and producing original content. Okay, so I think just to start, it would be great to hear from each of you who you are and what you do in your own words and what inspired you to, forge that path for yourself.
I go first?
Yeah, let's start with you, Dora.
So yes, I'm Dora. You had an amazing description, but I cannot top that. Like, okay. I work for Nike. I'm a running coach, but I also have my own collective called Ultra Black Running, which basically is just to get black women and non-binary people to just enjoy the outdoors, just because we need it. And obviously, like the last 2 years that we've had, nature has been like my savior, and I just wanted to share it with other people. And my work with Nike includes just making running more accessible, and I mean that in the sense of, you don't have to become a track athlete or anything when you start running. It's just how can you incorporate in your everyday life stuff like audio. I do stuff like a lot of audio things, a lot of like voiceover work, just to kind of like coach people, but in a bit of a chill way, because running is scary. And it's also just, it's a fun way to make money. So, yeah.
Cool. And Jamila?
Okay, I'm Jamila, and I'm a photographer, a creative director, and the editor-in-chief of Azeema Mag. And Azeema is a platform that represents women and non-binary folk from Southwest Asia, North Africa, and South Asia. And it was something that started as my final major project at university, and it was centered around exploring my own heritage in a visual way, and also by interviewing and sharing the stories of other women through the magazine. So, yeah, that's how that started.
Amazing. And Caroline?
Hi, I don't know why I'm going closer to it. Hi, I'm Caroline. I started about 5 years ago, end of 2016, if my maths is correct. So yeah, I just started it because I kind of knew, I just think there's a lot of interesting things that are happening that sometimes don't get platforms. So I just kind of grew up with a lot of people who were doing a lot of cool things, and then I just wanted to go to something that I would like to see. So I kind of created it. And then I think with our kind of niche is emerging talent, and you don't have to be young to be emerging either. It's not just for, you can be 50 years old and just starting out, or you could be above 25, because a lot of programs, they cut off at certain ages, like 18 or 25. And even after you've kind of done some stuff, I think, we still want to be there to support people. So yeah, we just host screenings, workshops, and aside from that, I kind of help produce some stuff as well, creatively produce. So yeah, that's a bit of it.
Amazing. And then I think we've kind of started talking about the inspiration behind why you started your collectives, but it would be cool to hear just, I think on a practical level, the first steps that you actually took when it came to starting Azeema and and Ultra Black Running. So maybe we start with you, Dora. What was the first thing you did when you realised you actually wanted to start coaching other people and building your own sports community?
Yeah, so I actually started coaching when I was 16, and it was kind of just my weekend job. I was coaching football. I don't even like football, but I was like, hey, look, it's a job, right? And the job itself was amazing. It was with kids. I absolutely love working with kids. They're the most incredible beings. And running was just kind of a passion that kind of emerged when I was around 18, 19, which is a strange time because, I'm in college thinking, am I going to uni? What am I going to do with my life? And running was just something, if I'm honest, I wanted to lose weight. I was going through a breakup and I thought, my world is coming to an end. What can I do? And a friend had asked me to come along to a boxing class. Hated boxing, long story short, to get better, you had to start running. And I was sort of like, oh, okay. And fast forward, I was like, oh, running's quite cool because I'm not doing it to become a professional athlete. I'm doing it just because I want to feel good, I want to look good. And then eventually my mindset started to change. I was sort of like, I'm not doing this for any aesthetic reasons. This is it's helping me think creatively as well. I think the school system sometimes is a bit challenging to have to be constantly focused on one set route. Whereas running, I was allowed to think creatively. Okay, what can I do with this? And at the time, I was like, I'll just stay running because it's pretty cool, and if I can find friends to come and run with me, short answer, none of my friends ran with me. But I was like, okay, I can try and find like-minded individuals. So I found a running club to join. Fun fact, it was actually Nike Run Club, which is my first ever running club or running with people experience type of thing. And I was like, this is really amazing. And I'd look up to all these coaches or run leaders, and I'm like, wow, they're so inspirational, and they're able to just run as their this is their job. This is amazing. I never even thought that I would be able to do that because I was like, no, I'm going to go to uni. I'm going to become a teacher. That's my thing. And I kept on coaching at the time, but it was never in running. And I was like, what if I coached running, but I had no idea how to. And then as I started to get a bit older, I went to college, studied child development, and then I went on to do youth projects and things. And I was supposed to be the logistics person on all the youth projects I've ever worked on, and I'm absolutely terrible at keeping organised. But I was like, hey, like, and then I think an athlete kind of didn't come in or called in sick or something. I was like, I can take a session. And everyone was looking at me like, okay. And it was a running session, and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea what I was doing, but I really enjoy it, and the other young people seem to enjoy it too. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. And then thankfully, like, you meet other people who can be like, oh, come and like just be at this. I was just at events. I just started going to events. I'm like, how can I sort of like I just want to be in this world. So I was just that person that was just always saw me at every event, like every picture's like, yep, there's Dora. And then, you know, you meet people, and then opportunities start to come, and I just grabbed any opportunity that came. And it wasn't necessarily like run coaching, it was just being at events, helping out, spreading the word, just meeting people. And then, yeah, fast forward, I talk forever, by the way. It just kind of led me to, you know, becoming exposed to the brands, so the world of branding, and working with a sports brand is obviously like, became a goal, and I was like, I could never imagine working for, you know, a brand as big as Nike, but I do. But it was such a journey, and looking back, it was the people, it was the opportunities that came around. It's not what you think. You don't think there's just like a simple application process online, and you blah, 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 you get an interview, and you get the job, and it's just like staying persistent, having a goal, but understanding that the journey is never going to be like a, you know, linear journey. There's going to be so many bumps, but you're going to also learn other things. And imagine this started because of boxing, and then I'm now a running coach. But yeah, and then lockdown. I'm fast forwarding like a million years, and then lockdown came about, and I was staying in the countryside for a good couple of months just to get away from London because it was a bit noisy. And obviously with the whole Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery movement, it was just something that there was a whole shift in my spirit, and I was just like, I just don't know how to feel, and I don't know how to exist in this world today. And the only thing I did during lockdown was run, because I just didn't want to do anything else, and I was petrified. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the future looks like for me. So I just started running, but I could only run in the countryside or like the nature, because it's either that or the motorway, and the motorway is really ugly. So I just like, okay, we can go in the fields, and the fields are beautiful. The nature is absolutely gorgeous, and I can't believe that we have this. So easy to access. And I'm also a massive lover of house music, so it's like it was like my thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to make a nice playlist, I'm going to go have a run, and there was so much release from it. And lots of the times, like, I'd finish a run and I'd just be crying, because it was just like a huge build-up of emotion just because of everything that was going on. And then I called up some friends to come and do it, and they said no. Again. So being my friend, obviously, it's a job. And then a lot of persuasion, and they eventually started to come along. And obviously I'm like, you know, we can stop as much as you want. We can get all the Instagram content, you know, make it cute. And it was summer, so like obviously we're all glowing, looking great. And then other black women, other non-binary people started to reach out and wanted to come along. And I was like, yeah, sure. There's no sign-up process. Just we meet here, be there. And I think the conversations that started to come out about the run and how they're feeling existing in this world today that we live in, I realised, oh my gosh, this is super important, and this is the collective that I need to, you know, I've got to nourish, cherish it, and do everything I can. It's like, I feel like it's my calling, but it's super unique, and I feel super passionate about just helping people like myself and using running to bring us together.
Awesome.
I'll stop talking.
And something that you mentioned there was, I guess, like reaching out to your friends, which obviously at the start was less successful, but after some persistence, sorry, that's an in-joke for someone in the audience, but after some persistence, you were able to kind of like, I guess the term that we're talking about, which is network sideways, which is something that might sound strange, but it's basically just about, instead of, you know, I think a lot of the time people are told to reach up to someone who is where you want to be and just like get advice from them, get access to them, get like work with them and ask them for opportunities. But there's also real value in kind of like looking to the people around you and saying like, what do we want to create together and like grow together? So I guess Jameela, if I'm going to link it into you, what did you think was so valuable or necessary about kind of starting this independent magazine from the ground up and working with people around you?
Well, first of all, I'm originally from Nottingham, I'm originally from Nottingham, so when I moved to London for university, and when I first came here, I didn't really know that many people, so for me, like, the magazine wasn't just a project in which I was putting out, like, visuals and stories. It was more of a way to connect with other people, so, and people who had, like, similar backgrounds to me, which was really important to me as I was trying to figure out my identity, and the best way to do that is to connect with like other people, and you know, so the magazine was really helpful for me in that way, and yeah, so I didn't originally start out wanting to make a collective. I guess it's something that has grown around the magazine and what it stands for, and then from the very beginning it was, you know, just something that people can relate to in different ways. And there's kind of something for everyone in there. And I obviously did the first issue by myself, so it was a print magazine to start with. And since then, after that, I got like lots of messages and people kind of wanting to get in touch, saying like, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. It really speaks to me. I just want to get involved. How do I get involved? Which was really beautiful, and I didn't really expect that from the beginning. So I think, yes, from early on, it became quite obvious to me that this wasn't going to be like a single, like one-off project. Yeah. It had to be something that was going to continue. So from the first issue, it was, you know, it was going to grow. So since then, like, the team kind of grew around it. I've got an amazing group of friends and people that I work with now on the magazine. It's not just a solo project anymore. And I guess that's where the collective part of it comes from. It's, you know, it's not just one voice, it's now multiple voices. And not only is it just like, you know, this internal team, it speaks to so many more people, you know, from everywhere, not just London. Like, it's quite international. We have, you know, people in Cairo, people in Paris, people in New York, like, who, you know, contribute or feel like they're part of the, you know, the wider collective of Azeema. And for those who don't know what Azeema means, it means strength. So you can tell there's quite a universal message behind it. But yeah, I guess that's kind of like an explanation as to, you know, how the collective kind of started. And it's not just about being part of a physical team, it's being part of something wider than that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how it stemmed from your personal kind of like journey, and yet that connected with so many people.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question, and then I want both of you to answer it. Did you feel like you were already qualified in your area of, like, or your discipline before you started, or do you feel like it's something that you kind of had to learn on the job? Because I think that's something that stops people from pursuing creative paths, because you're like, oh, but I don't have a journalism degree, or oh, but I don't have like a photography like BA or whatever. Yeah. Did you feel like it was something that you had to kind of learn as you went?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, although it was my final major project at uni, I probably would have made something similar anyway, whether with or without having, you know, doing a degree. But
what was your degree in?
Fashion communication and promotion. And I did that at Central St Martin's. But I guess I've learned pretty much everything as I've gone along. Nobody taught me how to run a business. Nobody taught me how to make a physical magazine in InDesign. Nobody taught me how to organize a group of people. Like, all of this is stuff that we've had to learn along the way. And even like starting a creative agency, nobody told me how to deal with contracts or licensing or production. All of it is stuff I've either learned through having a full-time job separately, or, you know, learning from doing freelance gigs and as you go. So yeah, for sure. No, I don't think you would necessarily need a degree to do what I've done, but it's like, I think it helped me in making the final product, but you learn along the way a lot of the time.
So true. And Caroline, would you say the same? How much experience did you feel like you had before starting Undrlndn in what you were doing, and what was the journey like? What was the learning curve like for you?
It was a big learning curve. I think I kind of grew up in arts education, so from the age of like really young, I kind of knew a lot of like, you know, people from just youth theatre, or like similar to you guys, what you're doing, coming to workshops, you kind of meet people and you kind of grow together. So I kind of knew a few amount of people, but it's not just about knowing people, it's about actually having a genuine relationship with them. You can know someone, but you might not have a good relationship with them at all. So I think I had some like genuine relationships with people, and like we kind of grew together. I did like film studies for like A-level in school. I know, you know, nowadays, because like I did that like 10 years ago, so I think now they do like more media B-Tech and stuff. But even when I was in school, it was like people were telling me, that's not a real subject, Caroline.
Literally.
They'll be like, yeah, literally, it was like looked down on. It was like, and then I was just like, okay, like, but the funny thing, people in my class, people in my class now still working professionally, so it just shows like that's another talk about like the mindset around arts education in school. So I did that, and that really helped me as well, because it exposed me to different things. I was watching like Iranian cinema, European cinema, and I thought I knew about film, and then I went there, I was like, oh no, okay, like, there's a lot to learn. And I didn't go uni as well, so I worked in a theatre straight after I finished school, and there was a bit of, because you know, you see all your friends going to uni, and then you're like, you're in the real world working, and sometimes you're just like, okay, like, let's hope this works out. Sorry, I'm laughing, but yeah, it's just like, I hope this works out. So I think, like, I continued to meet people through the job I was doing as well, so it was kind of like, I definitely took the stairs. It was no like shortcuts or anything. This is like 10 years ago as well. I don't think I was professionally qualified, but I think I had a gift, and I knew that. I think everyone's got something inside of them that comes naturally, or something that, you know, they would do even if they weren't working in that field. Even if you were like working another job, you'll still be thinking about it, or you're still naturally interested in it. I think I clocked pretty early on that that was like my thing, and I was able to connect with people. Like when I was in secondary school, people would be like, oh, she's really weird, but like she's good at that. And then I was like, okay, maybe that's my thing, that I'm like able to connect with people too. But I think when I've gotten older, I've learned that soft skills is more important than professional training. People can train you up at any time. There's things happening all over. If you're nice to people, if you're on time, if you're like a good listener, if you genuinely care, people will like, that's going to maintain your job. That's what's going to get you jobs. All that other stuff, you have to be good with people and good at your job as well. And when we're like these industries, you're dealing with people, it's not just sitting like on a solo thing. So I think I wasn't professionally qualified at all. I still don't think I am, but like I had to learn pretty quickly. And that stuff, nowadays you've got YouTube, you can just like, you know, or you can, and the thing is like, even if you don't know stuff, like sometimes you just have to be humble in life and just learn on the job, make some mistakes, and then that's how you, like, I think everyone these days are trying to like, it's okay not to know everything, okay? Yeah. Like, I still don't know everything. I'm still waking up every morning being like, okay, I hope this is going to go well, like, and I think that's important to keep growing.
Yeah. And what was one of the, like, first steps you took in starting Undrlndn? Like, do you remember any of your first screenings or the first kind of, like, conception of it as an idea?
Yeah, me and my friend Shalana, who I co-founded it with, I think I was working in a cinema at the time, and I was earning minimum wage. So I had multiple jobs. The hustle was real, guys. And I saved up, and out of my monthly fee, we like booked a hall similar to this, and we paid for like everything. And then like our friends came and supported us. So it's really like grassroots like stuff. And I know with you guys, when you're starting your own, sometimes you're having to work a job to pay money, or like, so yeah, that was the first step. But I think that kind of, there was no guarantees when you do these things. It could, like, people could not come, or it could, like, but I think we were, like, working, investing our own money in it, and sometimes it's a bit, you know, like, you do get nervous because it's a new thing, and sometimes you think, oh, people are going to take it seriously, or they're just going to think, but, like, we just didn't stop, and, yeah, just, like, before I even knew what funding was, like I was funding myself. So I would like, you know, bring packed lunch every day to work because I knew with this money I had to like buy this thing with. So yeah, it was just a lot of just like investing in myself and just using what I had. It wasn't a lot at the time, but just trying to make it happen.
Yeah. And what would you say are some of the biggest like barriers or difficulties in running your own collectives? Let's start with Dora.
Gosh, so many barriers.
So many to choose from.
I'll start with like personal, like perceived barriers. So like you mentioned before, the whole thing about am I qualified enough to be doing what I'm doing? And a lot of my things are social media. I'm always talking on social media. A lot of my work comes from social media. And at first, it's sort of like, oh my gosh, this person's doing this. They have it all together. This person has a partnership with this company or organization. They have it all together, and they have so many people showing up. That was like really scary for me because I was like, how am I going to actually just turn this into a thing? And I'm going to talk from ultra black perspective. I was like, you know, and this is sort of coming from my own experiences. I'm doing this because I feel a way about something and I want something to change, or I want more representation in the running world, or, you know, and when you're working with topics like that, it can be very isolating. So I had a lot of self-doubt, and it was a lot of, I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of like crying down FaceTime to my friends, like, you know what, if it doesn't work and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want any brand support. I didn't want any funding to begin with. Not that people were throwing it at me, but I was sort of like, I want to make sure it's right, and I want full control because I know what I want from it, and this is for the people. And I think the more people get involved, then it's sort of like, I'm losing control, and not everyone is going to be able to, you know, get the most. But yeah, so main challenges was like my own sort of like believing in myself, and also again like persistence. Is like just persisting because it's like this is something completely new. Like I see myself as successful now, but now I've got my own baby, and I'm sort of like, okay, we're working from the ground up again. So just staying persistent, and that can be really, really hard. And like being disciplined as well can be really difficult, especially when you just like you got to work as well. My rent is due every month, so it's sort of like, okay, you know, thinking about like where you're going to spend your money and all these kind of things. A lot of my barriers were like personal.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that is hard with, obviously you think about collectives as being these massive or like collections of people, but they start with one person having to really own an idea and sell people into it, and so much of that sits on your shoulders then because you're like, it's your baby. Jameela, what do you think, what's your biggest barrier?
I think similarly actually, but even I still struggle sometimes, you know, if I have a big job that's coming up, which I do at the moment, so, you know, I'm already panicking about that, but it's sometimes difficult to kind of, you know, trust yourself and your abilities, and, you know, trust that your creative skills in whatever you're doing. I think I always have to remind myself it's like I've come this far, I've managed to do what I've done, I have good skills, I can do it. So I always have to kind of tell that to myself. One of the other barriers, I guess, I sometimes get like imposter syndrome, which is like where you really kind of think, oh, like, am I supposed to be in this space? Or, you know, am I good enough to do this? Or, you know, like you just kind of don't feel like you fit. And I think sometimes I really struggle with that, and I have to kind of really push myself out of that mindset to be like, you know, to affirm it and just be like, no, I am where I'm supposed to be, and, you know, I'm doing the right thing right now. One of the other barriers, I guess, is always financial. You know, I don't come from a super wealthy background. I've worked absolutely like for everything. So I think with funding for like the projects that I've done, and even for like, you know, Azeema's like early beginnings, and still even now, like we're not funded. So it's a massive struggle. I had to work a full-time job to kind of pay for the things I wanted to do, which was a really high intensity full-time job. So I'm, you know, always having to like split my time between things, which isn't always the easiest thing, but it's what I had to do. And even now, like, we're still trying to kind of get funding for things, and that's another reason why we started the creative agency, because it's a kind of a good way to earn money in doing partnerships with brands and things like that. But yeah, I guess it's really kind of mental like barriers, and also the physical barriers of finance and being able to pay for the things you want to do.
Yeah.
But it does make you super resourceful.
Yeah, it's true. And what about you, Caroline?
It's funny because it's kind of identical. Yeah, I think it's like similar, like your own personal, just sometimes like, you know, like sometimes in life we're just having those days when we're just like, I want to sit in my room. You've got to do a screening, or you've got to like, I don't know. And I think it's a bit different because I kind of came through that whole like, so like 10 years ago, like Instagram was just like percolating. It like, it wasn't what it was today. Like that's when it was pure and innocent. But I think now, I think there's a lot of noise happening, so you've really got to know your lane and your offering to what you're bringing to the table, and you've got to know your direction. You've got to know your offering. So like my offering and everyone's offering on here is so different because we do different things, and you've got to be like secure in it and stable because there's a lot of noise. A lot of people will ask you to do stuff, so you've got to know, okay, this is like the direction I want to go in. This is like my values. Okay, this project is not like, this project's not right, but I still wish you the best. Like, let me come and support. Support comes in different ways. So I think you have to kind of know that about what direction you're going to. Because sometimes it's, you can start a collective, but you've got to kind of know the direction you want to go in. Because sometimes after a while, you kind of have to like, you know how Apple does their upgrade thing, like every iOS. Like sometimes you have to do an iOS with your collective. You have to be like, okay, like what's the direction we're going in? What's the kind of thing we're heading for? And yeah, like funding as well. You have to kind of like pay everybody on projects and stuff. So you have to, and that comes with responsibility as well. You have to like, because you're the leader of it. If you're a collective, there's a lot of responsibility as well, because you want to make sure that these people want to continue to work with you. So you can't mess up on invoices. You've got to make sure people get paid on time. You've got to make sure people are taken care of. Even little things like, did you get home safely? Making sure people get home okay. You kind of become there's a lot of responsibility on you. So I think people sometimes just see one side of it, but they don't see, okay, after the project, there's a week of me at home doing the admin or me checking up on certain things. So there's a lot of responsibility as well. So yeah, it's a mixture of all that. And with the imposter syndrome, even some days I'm just like I sometimes I feel guilty when good stuff happens to me. I don't know why. Maybe that's like another conversation. But like sometimes I'm like, oh, like, are you sure? Like, and so I just have to like kind of reset my mind. And now I'm just at a point when, because I'm getting older now, and I'm just like, okay, like with this will sometimes when like good opportunities happen, like instead of just thinking, oh, like I'm now in the mindset of like, okay, this is going to come with responsibility. How can I use this to help other people? So I think that just takes like maturity and getting older. But yeah, like I think it's just about like kind of, because I think it's hard if you've grown up in certain circumstances. Sometimes you just see the work we do is different to the work our parents do sometimes. And we see them coming back from a shift, and sometimes we feel guilty that we're just like, I'm a creative, and it's like, So I think it's just about like the mental stuff, and I think sometimes when you sort that out, sometimes that's like the foundation of things. I hope that was clear.
Yeah, that makes loads of sense. And on a positive note, what are some of the highlights that you've had in the last few years of running in collective? We'll go again in the order.
So when I started out Ultra Black, it was just to like purely represent those who are not seen. And when I say representation, it's more of in the trail running world. It's not very diverse, and this is like age, people, walks of life, and it's for loads of reasons. It could be like trail races are too far away, and us Londoners, we don't want to be on a train for more than half an hour. And not a lot of black women, and when we're talking about, you know, gender and people, how people identify, you know, signing up for a race can be super daunting because, you know, there are things like male or female and that's it. So we've sort of been able to sit in these rooms with race directors and organisers and, you know, change that and, you know, have multiple categories and also put on a race. So we put on a trail race for literally everybody. It was take 50 black women and non-binary people to train for their first ever running experience. And it was all the way in Kent. Cannot believe people trusted me to take them to Kent to run in the mud. Method to the madness. But we also invited the entire running community. So there are so many running collectives out there and brands and whatever. It was whoever wanted to come could come. And we had things like, to make it super accessible, like pick people up. Just how can I make things easy for you? I will travel anywhere to run a race, and I've run races literally in so many places around the world. But I want it to be so diverse and people from all walks of life. I want like teenagers be running with aunties and all that kind of stuff, you know. And we put on our first race in July last year, and it was just incredible because the planning process was literally hell inside of hell. And I definitely like cancelled it 3 times before I didn't make any announcements. I was like, I'm not doing it anymore, and it was a lot of like crying FaceTimes again. I'm telling you, being my friend is like, it's amazing. And it was sort of like, I always knew my why and why I wanted to do something, but I just kind of got lost along the way because there are so many things. It's, again, like a lot of responsibility, and it's like, okay, I want DJs, I need food vendors, I need photographers, I need this, I need that, and it's just like, oh my God, it's so noisy, and this is a lot, this is a huge project, I just want people to run. But there needs to be a story told, you know, like everyone has such a unique story, and running is just the thing that brings people together. Like running is actually like the thing we don't need to worry about, it's just bringing people together, telling their stories. Anyway, race day came, and it was incredible, and I slept for like 2 days afterwards, like turned my phone off. But it was just seeing other race organisers see that and be like, it is possible. Because I had a lot of like clashing with a lot of, you can imagine, a lot of, you know, why should we do this? And there's a lot of like dealing with trolls when, you know, I publish something in a magazine and it's sort of like, you should be doing this and blah, blah, blah. No one's racist, nothing's racist. All of that to deal with. And it was just like, I should have just got a normal job. But yeah, I stuck to it, and obviously I always knew my why, but it was just like I had such an amazing support system as well. My friends, they tell me no, but they do support me. And that just kept me going, and yeah, we created this event, and it was incredible. Planning year 2, which is even more stressful, but yeah, it does feel great.
Sick. Jameela?
I think there are a lot of highs with having Azeema. I think, if anything, it's like having that network of amazing people around me, and all the physical events we get to do, they're loads of fun. So we do like a lot of like parties or like launch events, or just even like get like a pop-up like get together type thing, and like it's always really fun because you get to meet so many different types of people that you just feel like you're surrounded by warmth, which is really nice. I think the highlights are definitely doing these events and meeting everybody.
And Caroline?
Yeah, similar. Like it's like the events, and you know when it just started out with like, you know, you just jotting something down or like inviting someone to coffee and telling them about it and being like, there's a reason why I brought you here today, and it's not just to catch up. I think it's also the small wins as well. Like maybe someone came to shadow on a shoot and you got a reference for them and they ended up getting their first job. Like that for me, like those are the things. Or like seeing someone, you know, really go on their journey and you're able to see the growth in them, not just like professionally, because I think sometimes when you get to like a certain age, it's just like, oh, what you doing now? Like, but it's also when you see them grow personally, being able to just like grow into themselves, grow into like really nice human beings and come through certain circumstances. Those for me are like very, because I think in collectives you deal with people as well, you know, when you're doing like, so not just their professional skills, but when you see them come through certain circumstances. And, you know, even like some of the guys that I met, like when we were like teenagers or like really young, they've grown up to be like really nice young men now, and I'm just like, wow, like I met you when you were like this high, and just seeing that, those things that really matter to me, and they kind of show that it's, you know, it's not just about one thing, it's also about like the whole package, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. My next question is, I guess, like, when we talk about creative industries, people obviously talk about like job security and like having a salary and all that stuff. But I wanted to hear why you think it's so great to work as part of a creative rather than just as an individual in an organisation. Let's go this way, switch it up. Keep them guessing.
So, like, is it why it's good to...
What's great about being in a collective rather than just kind of like being like, okay, I'm going to go work for the BFI, for example,
Right.
or, you know?
So I think no one's ever fully independent in life. Even if you're an independent music artist, your audience, you'll still like have a connection with them. So nothing's ever fully independent. There's just different structures around things. But I think me and my friends, like how we started out, like some of them we met on creative projects. So we already knew how to work with each other. And over time we just became friends because we were like seeing each other every day. So like we hope that there's a good relationship. But you know, we all came from different backgrounds. Some of them, it'll be a case of their parents people at home weren't able to support each other, so we would come to each other's performances, or we would share opportunities on group chats, being like, hey, like, let's, and it wasn't a thing of like, we didn't hoard anything from each other. We literally shared everything with each other, because it was just like, okay, if this might not be right for me, but I hope my sister gets it. Like, I hope they're able to like get this thing. And so we just shared with each other. Even still to this day, we just had that mentality. And I think that's really helped us, because sometimes it can be kind of lonely if you're doing it by yourself. But we came from like a place where we just shared everything with each other. We were just like, yeah, like, come, if you need help doing a self-tape, or if you need help, oh, I know this opportunity. Because some opportunities are more open calls, and some of them are like internal things where it may not be all over social media, it might not be online, it might just be a thing that they know. But like, we just shared with each other, because, you know, we only had each other really. Sometimes you come from homes where they might not fully understand what you're doing. Yeah. They might be like, okay, what is this you're doing again? But like, sometimes your circle kind of knew what you were doing. So we just shared everything. And I think that never really failed. And I think when it comes from like a good place, it never did. So I think that definitely helps. And those people are there when things are not going well as well. Like when you're going through a hard time, could be personally, could be a job didn't really go that well. I think those are the people that are going to uplift you and carry on your spirit, so you're not getting deterred. You do learn from it and you move forward. So I think that circle, I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for some of these people, because they really did like hold me down, and those are the people that you won't forget. No matter where life takes you to, you always be like, oh no, those are actually my people. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And Jameela?
I quit my job just before the pandemic, actually. So I used to work for a national magazine, and I quit just before everything went like crazy. So but I think it was the best decision for me, because it was so intense for me, and I couldn't really focus on Azeema or my kind of personal career as a photographer. And it was a really definitive moment for me to go freelance. And like, I much prefer, you know, having Azeema as almost like my full-time job, because it gives you so much freedom in the sense where you are in control of the work that you're creating rather than working underneath somebody else. So it's kind of like a lot more free in the sense where you can make your own decisions on the jobs that you take in, or, you know, the projects that you work on and how you work on them. And one of the other things is that you'll find the further you go into your creative career, you rarely do a project by yourself. You will always collaborate with somebody, even if it's, you know, the team that helps you bring it to life. For example, if you might be the photographer or the director, or, you know, doing a certain job on set, but you will always have people around you either way, even if, you know, like, they're the team filming it, or helping you make a set for whatever you're doing, or even like producing it. You'll rarely do the whole thing by yourself. So I think it's really important to think about the collaborative process for everything, really, even if the idea is your own, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's so true. And Dora?
I think since quitting my job, which happened a year before the pandemic, and then just before the pandemic, everything kind of like went up into flames, and I had no job security whatsoever. So it was sort of like, well, you know, I can either sink or swim, and I cannot swim. But I felt like, okay, I can really own this and really just like put everything that I have into it. And again, it's the people you meet, the people that hold you down, and everyone I've met who are freelancers, creatives, their work ethic just keeps us going. Because they're like, quit your job so you don't have to work 9 to 5. I'm like, yeah, but we're working 24 hours.
Exactly.
The grind never stops.
Yeah, it literally never stops.
I
literally work on a Sunday. But it's like everything that I'm doing is because I want it to be done. And like I've worked with so many companies in the sporting world, in the mentoring world, but it's sort of like, again, there's responsibility and it's scary, but I will have it no other way. And it's the people I meet and helping other people. Like I've helped people I was literally someone's lighting assistant. I don't know anything about photography and all that stuff, but I was like, I'm going to help you on this set because it's like, okay, it's a sports campaign, whatever, but we're going to make it good. And it's that kind of, those relationships that you build, and you kind of all just kind of like, I feel like over the years I've kind of grown with people and we're all just sort of like going and growing and going in like emotion, but everyone's going into their like niche or what they call it. So that for me is like super beautiful, and for that I just will not have it any other way.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it would be cool to open to questions in a sec, but one last quick fire question for all of you. What is one thing you wish you knew when you started your journey? Start with Caroline.
Okay, so this is like the real life advice. Okay, so I came up through like community arts focus events, and then there came a shift when I still do that to this day because what we do is grassroots, but then I started to get onto commercial projects where it's like money or like professional jobs. So like I learned this from myself, but like I kind of know that I have to work 10 times harder than everyone else just because of like just the place I come from. So I call it like cookies. Like I know I don't have like certain cookies to like mess up on, so I have to get there proper early. Like I have to like be extra prepped. I don't have those cookies to just be like, like, if that makes sense. So I don't have certain privileges. So I feel like when you come on a job, like arrive early, be prepared. You're working even if you're on your break. The moment you step in to the moment you leave, you're working, okay? So you might see other people doing their things. You don't have those cookies. Like, you need to like be on point. Every job is an audition for the next job. So how you talk to the receptionist, how you're with all the learn people's names, get to know them. All these things, is really important to like gain all those skills and follow up afterwards. After you finish a job, send an email, send a message saying thank you for this opportunity. And those things have never failed me. So it's just about learning how to like conduct yourself and knowing, okay, like you have to be real with yourself sometimes. You have to know, okay, like if I want to get here, I need to get ready for this opportunity. So even these little things, so you might think, oh, this is not like, this is just a small thing. No. Like the big things come from the small things, trust me. So even it might be like a thing at a community hall, still take it seriously, still come early, still come on time, still be on point, because that's almost like it could be a hidden audition for your next big job. Someone might be in that room and be like, hey, I saw this person here. I think they might be good for the next thing. So that's what I wish someone would have told me, but I just didn't know because I was just like, being silly. So I wish someone would have told me, like, you got to like treat it like a job, even if you're doing like youth fit or stuff. Even if you come to your class, be early, be on time, start training yourself now, because you might say you might want to do professional jobs at this age, and you can totally do it, but you've got to get ready for it. There's no point you getting an opportunity prematurely. So even if you're going to like youth fit, or be on time, be prepared, like start doing those things, and then if that is your intention for you to get commercial jobs or to like work with brands, you'll be on the right path to do it. If you're not doing those things, then those things won't happen. So I think you just have to be real with yourself, what you want to do, and know the steps and how you're going to have to carry yourself in order for you to get there.
I think that's a really, really good one, especially that your job now is an audition for the next one, because I think it can be really easy to just get bogged down in the day-to-day. Jameela, what's yours?
I think one of the things I really struggle with, even at the moment, is the business side of things. And like I don't think that's something that's always taught. And like at school, I didn't do business studies or anything like that. So I literally just picked all the creative subjects because that's what I wanted to do, which is great because it's like that is what I'm doing now, so that was the right decision. But at the same time, I didn't get any like business advice, and even now I'm still in the process of getting business advice because it's like I can make the product, I can make the images, I can make it look great, but it's like it's also the stuff that you don't see behind that's really important. So I think if there's anything I wish I'd learned, I wish I'd known, is a bit more about that before I'd started out with all the creative stuff.
There's definitely like almost like an attitude where it's like you either go down the business path or you're the creative, and it's like, and then you just get to do all the fun
but you
things.
Kind of,
but
even
you
as,
need
as
both.
a manager of yourself, you need to know how to like do all of that.
Oh my God.
And like it's all very well if like you know how to
taxes. Sorry, I just started thinking about my taxes.
Seriously, like it's all very well if you know how to take a photo. That's great, but it's like if you don't know how to manage yourself or like
send
how
an
to
invoice,
do your invoices or all of that important stuff, then you're destined to fail. Like you need to know how to do that. But yeah, I wish someone had told me that. And another thing I think is probably kind of quite relevant as well, which I'm glad I did, it was doing work experience. I think that's also super important, just to like, shadow somebody else or, go and work in that environment that you want to work in, like apply for those things, like don't be afraid to send an email to a company that you admire and you would like to do some work experience in. Like, I think one of the most beneficial things in my career was doing my work experience. Because of that, you make connections with the people that you work with. If you're, like you said, on time, polite, you do a good job, they'll remember you. And that only serves you well in the long run. Yeah,
absolutely. And Dora?
So mine are, so there's two things. So one of my friends told me, he's like, everyone is watching, and I was like, great. And it was literally like, it's like the auditioning, your one job is for audition for another one, and literally everybody is watching. And I say that because you've got to talk to people. Like, if you go to just talk to people, and you never know what can come from like a conversation, right? And I do a lot of like mentoring for young women, and they've all gone off and they're doing their own thing, and I'm literally watching every single one of them, because I know at some point like an opportunity is going to come up for somebody, and it's like, okay, I'm ready. Because it's like collabing with people, networking with people. We always say networking. You hear that word a lot, but it's just talking to people. And it's just like simple conversations. I talk to a lot of people on set and find out their passions, and someone is like, oh, actually, I do this, and like my side hustle is X, Y, Z, and you're like, I know someone who like works for a company or an agency or a brand who could potentially like put you in touch with. It's just putting people in touch with people. But yeah, everyone is watching, and it's not even in a bad, it's not a negative way. It's like everyone's watching because they're just interested to see what's going on. What was I going to say?
Second point, talk to people. You're inspired. That was it. The reason when it's not scary that everyone's watching is because you actually don't know who you're inspiring. And one thing you do need to know is that you literally will inspire people, and people really will look up to you. And a couple of years time, people are going to be reaching out to you. Can they shadow you? Can you mentor them and all that kind of stuff? Like any path that you take, it's part of the whole journey. And if that means like you have to work in a different industry to get to where you actually need to be, like if you want to become, I don't know, like a photographer and you want to work for like a sports brand, do work experience for a sports brand. And it doesn't have to be in photography. It can be like someone who helps out on set. You want to become a coach, but you don't really know where to go. Shadow another coach. It doesn't have to be, if it's running, you can shadow a basketball coach. Like all of these skills are transferable. But yeah, it's just about like how you deal with people. Just talk to people, and don't be a redacted. What do you mean by that?
Don't be an a-hole.
Oh, don't be mean. Yeah, that's a very good one. On that everyone is watching point as well, I just feel like it's also transferable from like the set to also even, of course, maybe this sounds really obvious, but like social media. Like I have had something where I've maybe tweeted a joke about a TV show, and then the next week someone will email you like, oh, I saw you like Love Island, do you want to do this? Like I think there's so many ways that we forget that we are visible, but like being able to be like being really open about your interests, open about your loves, like open about what you want to do, you never know who is watching.
Yeah, honestly, like I always feel like I'm talking rubbish on social media, and I'm so embarrassed, but then I just don't stop. And I think I was just talking about like, oh, I'm so tired of like having to wash my shoes all the time and blah, blah, blah. And I literally got a global campaign, because I'm like, oh yeah, we want to talk about this thing about like sustainability. And I was like, I'm not really good at all that sustainability things. I'm still learning. Managed to get a campaign.
Yeah.
My highest paid one for the year. So I was like, oh, okay, cool.
I'm going to talk about more stuff.
I'm going to keep talking.
Holds up Twitter.
But yeah, it's just like like anything, I hate to be that person, like anything is possible, but like anything is possible. Just obviously look after yourself in the process, because it is a ride. To make sure you've got your tribe who are going to like hold you down through those rough patches.
Yeah, okay, all right. Any questions in the audience for anyone on the stage?
Don't be shy.
Please don't be shy, or I'll have to ask more. Hi.
Yes, it's kind of an open question, but you spoke about job security and how working in collective can like, obviously be really great. So I'm trying to kickstart my freelance. Well, I started as a freelance journalist, copywriter, but I found it's really not sustainable if you like, you don't have a name for yourself, and obviously working in a collective would, you get job opportunities and it's a lot easier. So my question is, how would you find new collectives or different people to work with so you can have all those job opportunities come to you really?
This is still in journalism.
Yeah, journalism, copywriting, stuff like that.
Maybe a good place to start would be like trying to find like networking events, just to kind of meet other groups that are doing like similar things, or I feel like there must be like, have you heard of the Dots?
Yeah.
I think sometimes they put out like different events and things like that. Maybe keep an eye out for if there's anything to do with journalism, where they're having meetups or things like that. I think going to events and things like that is a good way to kind of start conversations with people. I don't know if that's helpful.
I just realised I didn't introduce myself. I'm Natty, everyone. I'm a journalist. But yeah, I agree with Jameela as well, and I think even virtually doing the same, it's been really useful. Like, I think lockdown helped a lot of people want to connect with other people, like having the same struggles as them, etc. So I found a lot of like different call outs for people where they would just say, can we start a Twitter group chat? And we'll literally just have like, there's one that I'm in which is just black journalists, one that's like journalists of colour, one that's women, one that's just everyone. And they're just a really good place to like ask those first questions. Be like, the other day I went in and I was like, guys, I just accepted a fee, but the way that they agreed to it too quickly made me feel like they had more budget. Do I go back and ask them for more money? And they were like, yeah, go on. Like, there's nothing that's like, what's the worst that could happen? So I would say definitely like Twitter is a great place. Even, I mean,
there must be Instagram groups as well.
Yeah,
like just like accounts where it's like for journalists.
Exactly. And like, if it's hard to find them, go to kind of magazines that you like and look through who's on there, reaching out to those sorts of people. Yeah. A lot of people will be are sharing and posting those sorts of initiatives as well. So I think that's a good place to start. And then also just like, you can start one for yourself as well. So if you are on Twitter, I don't know what your socials are like, but you could literally start your own group chat and just make a call out. People will share it, and hopefully you can, or just like tag some journalists you like and see if they're up for sharing it, and then see if you can network sideways and bring in more people who are having the exact same struggle, because they're definitely out there. Journalists are so sad all the time. They definitely want emotional support.
Do you have any jobs? So is it just as easy by saying, can I go for a coffee with you? Or is there a way that I should approach that?
It's hard, isn't it? It's like, I think each person is different. I think we do also obviously talk about like reaching out for coffees and things, and I know I'm terrible at that, so I would hate to give advice and be like, yeah, everyone's so great, when I'm literally like, oh, someone asked me for advice and I've got 57 emails to send, I can't even like think about it. But I think it's definitely a case of like spreading the net wide and someone will come back. And if they don't, it's not a personal thing, you know? It's probably that person is just on deadline, or they are out of the country, or they're doing whatever. But I think never be afraid to send it. No one's going to be like, that person sent me a really polite email, I'm never going to commission them ever now. They're going to be like, I'll remember his name next time, or I'll remember their name next time, and look to you when an opportunity does arise. Just do it to everyone. There's the worst thing that could happen is they don't respond, you know?
What kind of journalism are you interested in?
So I like arts and culture. I do focus a lot of things that are close to me, so BLM, LGBTQ+.
Okay. I was just whilst you were talking, I remembered there's a mentoring group called Room Mentoring, and it's by Kenya Hunt. She's now the new editor-in-chief of Elle magazine. But she runs a mentoring group. It might be worth sending her an email.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah, good luck. Any other questions?
Yeah, if you could work with anyone, like dead or alive, any sort of like idol, who would that be?
I know who I want to work with at the moment. You know that guy, Ramesh?
Love him.
Like-
Undrlndn.
Yeah, I can't even say, that's just me. Like, I'm bad at speaking sometimes. That's ironic. But yeah, like, I just find him so funny. And I'm like, I was talking to him about, I'd like, because I think sometimes, like, obviously we have our heroes. Like, he is a hero. Like, I'm not like, that's the guy. But I just, you know, sometimes you just meet creatives and you're just like, I don't know how I could work with him, but hopefully one day on some kind of film or project. I just find him funny. Like, I hope he does live up to that, because that would be.
Oh, I feel like he'd be a good guy, yeah. Jamila?
I actually can't answer this because it's just like, it's too difficult.
Got to speak something into existence.
I mean, there's loads of people I'd like to work with.
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult to just be like, oh, I really want to work with this one person. But I think for me, it's more just working with many different individuals in different areas of the industry, rather than like one individual person.
Okay.
Yeah, again, that is hard for me.
Isn't it Usain Bolt?
I'm like, do you know what? Like, when I think about people I want to meet or people I want to work with, it's always like, who do I want to go on a run with? Because the conversations that come out of runs are honestly like next level. Eloise Chipkoji is like fastest marathoner. I just feel like we'll have a great conversation because he literally is like he's like literally the fastest man in terms of like long distance, and I just want to pick his brain, like, because he's just super chill as well, because obviously we see athletes who are like super serious in their training mode and everything. He's like super chill, and he like eats like a loaf of bread after a run, and I'm like,
My kind of guy.
Like a whole loaf?
like literally loaf of bread, and I'm like, okay, so we can eat carbs, okay, cool. So yeah, can I ask you a question?
Cool, that's a good question. Any more questions? Or let's go there first and then.
Regarding like finance, also like a lot of money gets squeezed back very tightly of it. And we don't really get an idea of this, like we don't know how much work is worth this and how much work is worth that. So when you first started monetizing your work, was it like a shock to you, like how much you earn, like how little?
I was about to say how little. Joking. Was it a shock?
No, not really. I think understanding your rates is something that comes over time, and like, yeah, it's kind of difficult. How do you explain it? I don't think it was a shock, but it's just kind of learning how to price your work, and like to price like the time that you're putting into whatever you're doing, and what you think that is worth. And also looking at like industry standards. For example, there's is it the APA? There's like a governing body type thing that has like creative rates on. So if you're working in the film industry, there's like a set rate that is kind of on there, and like that's a kind of good way to base like what a day rate would be, for example.
Yeah.
But I mean that doesn't apply to everything. But it's also kind of like getting to know what you think your rate should be.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, fees and finance is always like a really hard one. And when I first started out, I didn't really have any framework to kind of go to, and I was like, okay, I can try and like follow fitness industry, because I know a lot of it's like hierarchical depending on like your qualifications and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, as you learn as you go along, and now obviously when I'm pricing things, you know, there's so much to take into consideration now. And it's like, especially the pandemic, if you're sick, if you've got a pandemic, are you able to fund yourself? And cancellations, when you're talking to other people, when you're talking to people who are trying to book you for work, you know, if they give you something super low, inflation's the highest it's been in 30 years. I actually had to send an article to someone who asked me to do like a huge piece of work for free, and I had to send them the link.
So energy bills are going up.
Yeah, inflation's the highest it's been in 30 years. I literally, like, even if it's like such a great opportunity, I actually cannot afford to work for free on this thing. So, but it's just like, when I say look after yourself, these are the things you have to take into consideration, like sick pay, all that kind of stuff. And you just talk to people as well in the industry, look at loads of guidelines, as she mentioned. If it's, I don't know about like other creators and stuff, but I just have to like follow like coaching and fitness professionals. But yeah, just reaching out to people as well. Not saying what do they pay you. Ask if there's like a guideline where they can, you know, lead you to as well.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part as well. Like, I remember once I got a gig that someone else had, like, it was kind of a series of writing projects. And so I'd hit up the person who got it previously, and they'd offered me a fee that didn't feel right. And I didn't ask her how much she earned, but I asked for advice on negotiating, and I never heard back. And like, sometimes that will happen as well, because like you say, it is so taboo, and certain people haven't, like, not everyone is going to be open about it, but there are resources. If you even just, I found myself Googling stuff before, just like, how much should I get paid for an article that's this much? And all of that stuff is really useful. Having those like collectives and groups as well that you can talk in and literally say, like, what's the average rate for an organisation like this, or what have you been paid in the past for stuff like that? But then also just, I wondered if you had any thoughts on, like, there's the stage before monetization, which is actually often quite long. And like, I know for me, I started out with Galdem, another collective that wasn't able to pay people for like the first 5 years whilst they were having to kind of like establish themselves. And I remember the first piece I ever wrote, I got paid £10 for, which I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So there is also that part before monetization, which is quite substantial. And like, it's also realizing, like, at what point do I have value to add in ways that I can no longer afford to work for free, which is tricky.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to be able to afford to volunteer. That's the thing. If you're at a certain age where you need to buy food for your fridge, if you need money to, like, you might have free Oyster card, but what happens when that runs out? In order for me to come to this project, I need money to literally travel. And sometimes they're asking people from certain backgrounds who need that social mobility. They need the payment the most in order to like progress in their lives. And there's a lot of, like, I'm just going to keep it real with you, there's a lot of exploitation that happens. Sometimes they ask people who are like, you know, young and passionate to work on these projects because they need people to be there, and they're thinking, how can I save money? Okay, let me bring in a work experience person, let me bring in, you know, a runner or whatever, when really you're doing 12 hours work, you should be at least getting paid, you know, your expenses or like something. So like, I kind of, you know, I've done stuff for free, but now, like, even sometimes I still do, there are exceptions, but it's either like I look at the material, I look at the team, and I'm like, how do I make this work for me? Maybe I need a credit in this, I need to get like a production manager credit, so, but you have to make it work for you. Of course, if it's your friends and stuff, yes, you can, but you have to be able to volunteer it. Make sure you don't want to you can't pour from an empty cart. When you start out, of course, you're going to have to like build up your CV, you're going to have to build up your portfolio, you're going to have to do that, but you have to just be careful that you're not being exploited. So definitely have a mentor, or you guys are in the right place. I'm sure there's people here that you can speak to. If something doesn't feel right, normally it's because it's not right. Sometimes if you find out you're the only one on a project who's not getting paid, sometimes that's not right. And so you just need to be transparent and know your value. They're coming to you for a reason. And sometimes before you sign up to things, just do a Google, just have a look, just do your research before you know, like, if you do want to put yourself forward for something, just take a minute, just take a couple of days and just have a look through it. And sometimes these people will try and rush you as well. They'll be like, we've got to know by 5 p.m. It's like, chill.
There's other
like,
candidates, you're like, there's no other
like
candidate.
they'll try and rush you. They're like, oh, we need to know. It's like, you've just like, you need to know how to, like, you just text them back, I'll call you, and like, you have to be strategic with these things, because they'll try and exploit you, or they'll make you feel like, oh, there's someone else. If they really want you, they'll wait a bit, trust me. So don't let these people try their little things. So it's really important you have counsel from people, and you check in with people, because some people have been down the road before, so they'll be able to give you tips. So don't let people exploit you, because there's a lot of that happening. And sometimes it happens, you know, above you. Sometimes it can happen sideways as well. So you've just got to clock when something's not quite right, and know when to just, it's about boundaries, knowing your boundaries and what you're able to do at this time and what you're not able to do.
I know I feel like we're way over, but we had one more question. Did you still have the question? Oh, better make them quick. No, I'm joking. Tips on?
Growing the gram.
Oh, don't ask me for tips on Instagram. I have not got followers for that.
Yeah, I grew up in South, you know, and went to hood schools, all of that. And obviously being, especially like, I'm going to speak culturally as well, so Ugandan family and, you know, straight route. It's like, when I had said, you know, I want to do sports, it was like,
Sorry, what?
yeah, we'll go to university, and then I'm like, okay, cool. So that was also like massive in shaping my career as well. It was like navigating family structures and cultures and all that kind of stuff. And also I wanted to get out of the hood. I say that, I live in Leighton. But I wanted to get out. I wanted to do well for myself. I didn't want to look at myself a couple of years down the line and be in the same place, you know. Hope that answers your question. I do Instagram. Content, just like don't worry about the likes. Like, honestly, like, I was like, oh my God, this video didn't do well, whatever. Just keep consistent, keep it, you know, keep it to yourself as well. As I said before, everyone's watching. Loads of Instagram, like, tips and tools that they provide for, like, creators. But yeah, just like I say, loads of content. Me, I've even got, like, so much to be posting, but I just haven't had the time. But just keep providing, just keep creating.
I come from a working class family from Nottingham, and I grew up on a council estate. And for me, I just really I threw myself into my creative work, and I also like had to navigate family values. My dad wanted me to be an athlete or some kind of like accountant or something, you know, something that's to them is like, you know, the proper jobs. So for me, even doing something that wasn't, you know, in line with that is quite difficult to navigate in some ways. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. But in terms of the gram, I think you just have to be yourself. And, you know, it's just not all about likes and follows. It's just about your voice and who you are. And if people resonate with that, then, you know, everything else that comes with it is a bonus.
Yeah, kind of came up from like a regular background. Like, my mum's a nurse, so like I just saw her come home from every day, like working really hard, and so definitely, I think I just wanted to like explore the world. Really, I just wanted to like, you know, so I used up that free Oyster card very well. The last day it expired, I wasn't even sad. I just looked at it. I was like, we've had a good journey together. Like, I just like, you know, just my advice would just be like, meet people who you wouldn't normally meet, go to events. There's so much free stuff happening. It's really important to just widen your network. And it doesn't mean you don't stay true to where you're from. I think you can do both. And then sometimes just knowing if something doesn't feel right anymore, or you're ready to move past it, that's okay as well. You're able to kind of like do those things, and if that makes sense, it's okay to evolve as a person. You know, I'm sure we're not the same people who we were 10 years ago. We've evolved, you know. And in terms of like social media as well, probably I'm not an expert, but one thing I would say is like, you know, it's not just about getting loads of people, it's about finding the right people. Like your destiny helpers, the people who could be your next mentor. So just make sure what you're posting, just have a moment before you post it and just be like, okay, does this really represent who I am and what I can truly do? Yeah, and just like sometimes log out of that app and actually be in real life, go out, do stuff in real life as well. Because like that if you want to have a career, like I know you could be doing content, but like film content, like there comes a time when you need to log out of that thing, and it's not a bad thing at all, but like it's just about knowing that balance.
Should I answer? Or I think, are we out of time? I grew up outside of London though, first gen from Malawi, pretty average background, and yeah, coming to London is hard because you know no one. So it's an interesting journey. And Instagram, I do not have enough followers on Instagram, so I will not answer that question. But I do have a blue tick, so you win some, you lose some. Okay, all right. Is that the end, Fatima? Thank you so much. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Awesome. Thanks, guys. And